I heard the sound before I saw it. The sound that split my life into before and after. It wasn't loud, but it was final. A thud. A gasp. Then, silence thick enough to drown in. What if the person you loved most became the thing you feared most? What if the walls you grew up inside became a tomb for everything innocent in you? That night, the house wasn't just haunted. It was alive, breathing through every crack and whisper. I stood at the top of the basement stairs, holding my breath, my heart fighting to keep me from hearing the truth below. Caleb was down there. My brother. My protector. My nightmare. I wanted to scream, but my voice got lost in the dust and blood. How many times can a soul break before it disappears? The sound of dripping echoed long after the silence. I remember standing there, staring at the spot where innocence died. Caleb didn't speak. He didn't have to. The look in his eyes told me everything. The addiction had swallowed him whole. He wasn't my brother anymore. He was something hollow wearing his skin. I wanted to run. But where do you go when the monster lives inside your family? My hands shook as I helped him drag the body toward the old freezer. I didn't cry. Not then. Fear kept me still. Outside, the world went on like nothing happened. But in that basement, the air was heavier than truth. I told myself it was just a nightmare. But nightmares end. This one didn't. We didn't talk for hours. He cleaned. I watched. Every movement was mechanical, like a man trying to erase his own sin. The smell of bleach stung my throat, but I stayed. Loyalty or shock, I couldn't tell. Caleb mumbled something about owing a dealer, about threats, about survival. But how do you survive by killing what's left of yourself? I remember the clock ticking louder than my heartbeat. Time didn't move that night. It stretched and cracked. The longer I stayed, the smaller I became, until I was just a shadow watching my brother vanish into a blur of madness. Morning came like punishment. Sunlight poured through the cracked blinds, too bright, too honest. Caleb sat at the kitchen table, his head in his hands, shaking. I wanted to reach out, to pull him back from wherever he'd gone, but I couldn't. The sound of the fridge humming made me sick. I made coffee, because what else do you do when your life just broke apart? The steam rose like ghosts. He finally looked up at me, his voice a whisper. "Don't tell anyone." And I didn't. I kept his secret like poison under my tongue, waiting for it to kill me too. That night replayed in my head on a loop. The thud, the blood, the silence. I started hearing things. Footsteps when I was alone. Whispers from the basement. The faint hum of guilt beneath every breath. Caleb began disappearing for days, returning with bruises and excuses. I stayed, pretending the house wasn't rotting from the inside. Sometimes I thought I could still save him, but every time he left, I knew I was losing him to something stronger than love. I used to think addiction was a choice. Now I knew it was a thief that took everything, even the people who tried to fight it. Days bled into weeks, and the house learned to keep its own secrets. Every creak of the floorboards, every hum of the pipes whispered what we buried. Caleb stopped sleeping. I stopped speaking. We moved like ghosts trapped in the same grave, pretending to be brothers when we were just accomplices. The world outside kept spinning. Sirens, neighbors, laughter. But inside, time froze at the sound of that last breath. Sometimes I'd catch Caleb staring at his hands, whispering things I couldn't hear. Sometimes I'd smell bleach when nothing was clean. The silence didn't just fill the house. It became it, and I began to wonder, who was I protecting anymore? Him or me? The police came once, just once. They asked about the missing man, the one who never made it home from the bar. Caleb smiled, too calm. I answered carefully, each word balancing on the edge of truth. The officer's eyes lingered on Caleb's shaking hands, then on mine. and I thought he knew. But he just nodded, thanked us, and left. When the door closed, Caleb laughed, a dry, broken laugh that sounded like choking. I realized then that we weren't just hiding from the law. We were hiding from ourselves. Every lie we told added another lock to the door that trapped us inside. Nights became the hardest. Caleb's footsteps echoed through the hall, restless and uneven. I'd hear him whisper to the darkness, arguing with someone who wasn't there. Once I found him sitting in the basement again, staring at the freezer, whispering the man's name. I stood in the doorway, afraid to move closer. Addiction wasn't just killing him. It was resurrecting what we buried. The house reeked of old secrets, and I started seeing things. A shadow near the stairs, a flicker in the mirror, a voice that said my name. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was punishment. Either way, the house had learned to speak. One night, I tried to leave. I packed a bag, stepped outside, and felt the cold air bite at my face. Freedom was only a few steps away. But then I heard Caleb calling my name. It wasn't angry. It was broken, desperate. I froze. He said he couldn't do this without me. I believed him, even when I shouldn't have. That's what love does. It tricks you into staying where you should run. I went back inside. The door closed behind me, and it felt like a cell door locking. I told myself I was protecting him. But deep down, I knew I was just afraid to face the world without my brother. The house started to smell like regret. Stale smoke, spilled liquor, and something older. The neighbors stopped visiting. Mara Jenkins once knocked, asking if everything was okay. Caleb hid in the back while I smiled through the screen door, pretending we were fine. But she looked at me like she already knew. After she left, Caleb smashed a bottle against the wall, yelling about betrayal. I didn't say a word, because deep down I knew he wasn't angry at her. He was angry at the world, and maybe at me, for still being sober enough to see what he'd become. Before the basement, before the blood, there were summers when Caleb and I were just two boys chasing light through the woods. He taught me how to skip stones, how to lie to Mom about bruises, how to dream past the hunger. But dreams rot fast when reality starves you. The first time I saw him high, he was laughing, really laughing, and I thought maybe he'd found something better than pain. I didn't know that same thing would one day take him from me. Looking back, I can't tell when my brother disappeared. Maybe it wasn't one moment. Maybe it was a slow fade, like a song losing its last note. Teenage years came with sharper edges. Our mom worked nights. Caleb found new friends, the kind with fast cars and slower hearts. I'd wait for him by the window, counting headlights until one stopped outside. He'd climb in, the taillights fading like warnings I didn't understand. I still believed he'd come back whole, but each time, his eyes were a little dimmer. I'd hear him crying in the bathroom, then pretending to be fine in the morning. You can't save someone who doesn't believe they need saving. I learned that too late. It started small. Missing cash, broken promises, lies that sounded like truth. Then came the dealers. I remember one night, I found Caleb shaking in the kitchen, sweating, eyes darting. He said he just needed a little to get by. I gave him what I had. I thought it was mercy. But mercy can be poison when it feeds the thing killing someone. That night, he hugged me so tight, it hurt. He whispered, "You are the only one who still believes in me. I wish I hadn't." The drugs changed everything. Caleb stopped being a brother and became a storm, unpredictable, loud, and destructive. Some nights he'd rage through the house, smashing things, screaming that everyone wanted him to fail. Other nights, he'd sit beside me, whispering about running away, about starting fresh somewhere no one knew us. I'd nod, even though I knew he'd never go. Addiction doesn't move forward. It circles. It eats the good memories and spits out the bad ones. and I was stuck inside that circle with him. The night before everything fell apart, Caleb came into my room. He sat on the edge of the bed, hands shaking, eyes red but clear, for the first time in months. "I think I messed up bad," he said. "They're gonna come for me." I wanted to ask who, but the fear in his voice told me enough. He hugged me then, tighter than ever, and for one fleeting second, I felt like we were brothers again. But when I woke the next morning, he was gone. By sunset, the blood was on his hands. I left the house the morning after the police sirens faded. I didn't pack much, just a shirt, a photo, and enough silence to last a lifetime. The city was louder than I remembered. Every sound reminded me of something I was trying to forget. Footsteps in the dark, Caleb's voice, the basement. I slept in bus stations, shelters, anywhere that didn't smell like guilt. But no matter how far I went, the past followed, whispering through cracks in my mind. People looked right through me, and I let them. I wasn't running toward freedom. I was running from a ghost that had my brother's face. Shelters smelled like sweat and sadness. People came and went, telling stories that sounded too much like mine. I learned how to stay invisible, how to keep my head down, how to survive on vending machine food and borrowed blankets. Some nights I'd wake up thinking I heard Caleb's voice. "Eli, come home," it would say. But home wasn't a place anymore. It was a wound, and I wasn't sure it could ever heal. I started writing letters to him that I'd never send. Pages filled with everything I never said. I hate you. I miss you. I forgive you. Sometimes all three at once. One night I met a man named Jonah at the shelter. Clean for 2 years, eyes steady like he'd already seen hell and made peace with it. He told me, "Running won't save you, kid. You've got to face your ghosts," I laughed. What did he know about ghosts that wore your brother's skin? But something in his voice stuck with me. The next day, I followed him to a meeting, folding chairs, burnt coffee, people telling stories that felt like my own. I didn't speak, I just listened. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't the only one haunted. I started coming back every week. I'd sit in the back, quiet, invisible. Sometimes I'd catch myself scanning the door, half expecting Caleb to walk in, as if he could still find me, but instead, I found something else. The people there weren't perfect, but they were honest. Their pain was raw, and somehow that made it beautiful. Each story chipped away at the wall I'd built around myself. I began to understand. Survival wasn't about forgetting. It was about forgiving, even when the person who hurt you never asked to be forgiven. Months passed. I found work washing dishes, saving just enough to keep going. The nightmares came less often, but when they did, they hit harder. Caleb's voice, the blood, the basement. I still saw his face in every alley shadow, but something was changing. I was learning how to live with the ghosts instead of running from them. The city lights didn't feel so harsh anymore. I started to believe maybe I deserved another chance, not to forget, but to rebuild. And one night, sitting under a flickering streetlight, I whispered into the cold air, "I forgive you, Caleb." And for the first time, I almost meant it. The letter came on a Tuesday, folded and stained like it had already lived a lifetime. The return address said State Penitentiary. My hands shook before I even opened it. Inside, his handwriting was jagged, desperate. "I'm sorry, Eli, for everything. I see what I did now. I can't undo it, but maybe you can." I read it 10 times, each word carving something raw out of me. For years, I'd imagined what I'd say if I ever saw him again. But now, with his voice on the page, I realized I had nothing left to say. Forgiveness wasn't a gift I could hand over. It was something I had to grow, slowly, painfully, inside myself. I went to the meeting that night and read the letter out loud. My voice cracked halfway through, But no one interrupted. They just listened. Like they understood the kind of forgiveness that doesn't come easy. When I finished, Jonah put his hand on my shoulder. "He's paying his price, brother," he said softly. "But don't let that be your prison, too." I nodded, but it felt hollow. How do you free yourself from a cage you built out of love? I walked home under a sky that looked bruised, the stars faint and distant, like they were ashamed to watch. Weeks later, another letter came, shorter this time. Caleb wanted to see me. He said the nightmares wouldn't stop until he told me the truth face to face. I didn't want to go, but something in me, maybe the little brother still hoping, said I had to. The prison was 3 hours away. I sat in silence the whole ride, counting road signs like prayers. When I arrived, everything smelled like metal and bleach. I almost turned around, but when they brought him out in chains and orange cloth, I couldn't move. His eyes were the same, tired, guilty, human. We didn't speak for a minute, just stared. Then Caleb said, "I don't expect you to forgive me." His voice cracked. "But I need you to know. I wasn't trying to kill him. I just wanted him gone." He wouldn't stop coming for me, Eli. I watched him break right there the same way I'd broken years ago. I wanted to hate him, but hate felt too heavy. So I just said, "I know." We sat in silence again, and something inside me, the part that had been screaming all this time, finally went quiet. Sometimes forgiveness isn't a word. It's the moment you stop needing to punish someone for hurting you. After that day, the letters stopped. Maybe he found peace in his own way. I never visited again, but I kept the last thing he said burned into my mind. "Don't carry me anymore, Eli." For the first time in years, I listened. I started living again, one quiet morning at a time. The world outside wasn't brighter. I was. And maybe that's what forgiveness really is. Not erasing the pain, but learning how to live with it without letting it drown you. I still talk to him sometimes in my head, but now it doesn't hurt. It just reminds me that love, even broken, can still save what's left. It took me years to go back. I told myself it didn't matter anymore, that the past had already buried itself. But one morning, I woke up and knew I had to see the house again. Not to relive it, but to reclaim it. The drive was long and quiet, the kind of silence that presses against your ribs. When I turned down the old gravel road, my stomach tightened. The house stood there, slouched and hollow, like it had been waiting for me. Windows boarded, paint stripped away, but somehow it still breathed. I parked the car and sat for a long time, staring. Every memory I'd tried to forget lived behind those walls. The front door opened with a sound like a sigh. Dust hung in the air, shimmering in broken light. Every step I took felt like walking through old echoes. Laughter, arguments, silence. The smell hit me first. Mold, rot, and something faintly metallic, like the memory of blood. I touched the wall where our height marks used to be. Caleb's always taller, always first. My throat tightened. It was strange how empty the house felt without the ghosts I expected. Maybe they'd moved on. Maybe I was the last one still haunting this place. I made my way to the basement. The air grew heavier with every step. The wooden stairs groaned beneath my weight, just like before. For a moment, I froze at the top. The same place where everything ended. My hands were shaking, but I went down anyway. The freezer was still there, rusted shut, surrounded by cobwebs. I knelt beside it and closed my eyes. There was no blood now, no sound, just silence. The kind that comes after forgiveness. I whispered, "I'm not afraid anymore." And for the first time, I believed it. Upstairs, I found one last photograph still nailed to the wall. Me and Caleb by the river, barefoot, smiling. The edges had curled with time, but the faces were still the same. I held it carefully, afraid it might fall apart. That photo wasn't just a memory. It was proof that once, before everything broke, there was love here. I slipped it into my jacket pocket. I didn't come to erase the past. I came to carry it different. The pain didn't leave me, but it felt lighter now, like it finally had somewhere to go. Before I left, I stood in the doorway and looked back one last time. The house was still broken, still bruised. But it was quiet now, at peace. I realized it wasn't the house that haunted me. It was what I refused to face. I locked the door, slid the key under the mat, and walked away. The gravel crunched under my shoes, each step lighter than the last. I didn't know where I was heading, but for the first time, it didn't matter. The past was behind me. And for once, it stayed there. I didn't plan on telling my story. For years, it lived inside me like a wound too deep to touch. But one night, at a meeting, when it was my turn to speak, the words just came. I told them everything. The house, the blood, my brother, the silence. My voice shook, but I didn't stop. When I finished, the room was quiet. Then someone said, "Thank you." 2 words, but they felt like light breaking through old darkness. That's when I understood. Survival isn't about pretending you're okay. It's about letting your pain breathe so it doesn't kill you in secret. After the meeting, people came up to me, strangers with stories just like mine. One man said he hadn't talked to his brother in 10 years but would call him that night. A woman hugged me, crying. I realized then that sharing my story didn't just free me, it freed others. Pain has a way of connecting us, like cracks in glass letting the light through. I wasn't alone anymore. For the first time in forever, I felt proud of surviving. I walked home under a sky full of stars, thinking maybe the world wasn't as broken as I thought. I started volunteering at a youth center, helping kids who were running from the same ghosts I once did. I saw the fear in their eyes, the hunger, the anger. But I also saw hope. Sometimes when I spoke to them, I'd see a flash of Caleb in their faces, that same spark he had before the drugs stole it. I'd tell them that pain doesn't define you. What you do after it does. And maybe, in helping them, I was helping him too. Maybe that's what redemption really is. Not erasing the past, but giving its weight a purpose. Sometimes, I still dream about Caleb. In those dreams, he's clean. His eyes are bright again. We're sitting by the river, like when we were kids, skipping stones and laughing at nothing. He doesn't say he's sorry anymore. He just says, "You made it." I wake up crying, but it's different now. It's not the kind of pain that destroys you. It's the kind that reminds you you're alive. Maybe he's somewhere peaceful. Maybe he finally found the light that addiction stole. And maybe, through me, a piece of him still gets to live. Sometimes I go back to that house in my mind, not to remember the blood, but the sunlight through broken windows, the laughter before it all fell apart. I've learned that healing isn't forgetting, it's remembering differently. The past doesn't own me anymore. It's part of me, but it doesn't define me. I survived that house. I survived my brother. I survived myself. And now, when I look at the sunrise, I think of all the people still trapped in their basements, the ones who don't know they can climb out. So I tell my story again and again, hoping maybe it's the light someone else needs to find their way home.